have a very special speaker today. I'm terribly biased. Amanda Horn-Gunderson is Associate Professor of Music at Lycoming College, where she teaches piano and music theory. She has published research in biomechanics for small-handed pianists and asymmetrical meter in piano teaching repertoire. Her 2017 article, The Well-Crafted Question, Inspiring Students to Connect, Create, and Think Creatively, was published in MTNA's American Music Teacher Journal and won that publication's Article of the Year award. That is big. She's performed widely as a soloist and in chamber music in a lot of different venues, including Weill Hall at Carnegie and Beijing National Library. Amanda has served in a lot of different roles at our state organization, PMTA. She's been vice president, she's been conference chair, she's been president, she's been conference chair, a competitions chair, and now she's our past president. Having worked with Amanda quite a lot, I can tell you that Amanda exemplifies the art of compassionate, selfless, and inspiring leadership. She really makes people feel seen, heard, and empowered to do their best. Amanda's a special friend because I found out that one of the people that nominated our association for Association of the Year was Amanda, because she saw what we were doing and wanted to encourage us. And we're grateful for being seen in that way. Amanda is a graduate of Penn State and received her DMA from the University of Wisconsin in Madison, where she won multiple awards. The reason we're getting this talk today is in 2021, when we were in the midst of the pandemic, PMTA did its conference online, and Amanda presented a version of this talk. And when I saw it, and then in subsequent years getting to know Amanda, I just said, we have to get her here. So she's made the trip, and we're so grateful for you for having done that. And she's the perfect person to talk about this subject, because this subject is about communicating music to an audience, and Amanda is just a master communicator. So it just gives me great pleasure to introduce our dear friend, Amanda Gunderson.
Thank you so much, Jonathan and Miriam, all of you today for coming to see. What a great turnout. Mainline. I'm so inspired by Mainline, and that's why I nominated or joined your leadership at the time in 2023 to nominate Mainline chapter here to be the MTNA Local Association of the Year, and I can't think of a more deserving chapter as far as the organization of your leadership, the engagement of your members, the awesome programming, even with little details that have to be ironed out at the last minute. It's a robust and exciting program that you offer for your students and each other, and even lunch. I'm looking forward to having lunch with all of you. It's just so well run. So I just wanted to start by saying thank you all for making the way out here during the busy teaching season, when I know we're sort of being shot out of a cannon and finding the energy after summer. So it's great to join you today. And I also wanted to say a special thanks to Jonathan and Miriam for requesting this particular talk. I was sharing with Jonathan that I don't know about the rest of you, but I still carry a little bit of baggage around from the pandemic. And this was a little bit of that baggage. I had this proposal prepared. The conference was supposed to be in June of 2020. We decided to cancel the conference. Then we had the conference in June of 2021, and we had it on Zoom, and it was quite successful. And this was still a really delightful presentation to give over Zoom. But I said, oh, I would love the opportunity to have this presentation with real people in a real room. And so, of course, I had to change a few things and add some interactive components. So I hope today you're willing and eager to chat a little bit with both me and the folks in the room. We'll break into small groups a couple times, if that's okay. And if you can't hear me in the back, please give me a little wave and I'll try to speak a little louder. To that, I have a handout for you of the most text-heavy slides so that you don't have to take furious notes. on what's on the slide. I do not have every slide on that handout, just kind of the ones that make a list of things that I think might be helpful to take home. I do have a QR code on the first slide of your handout if you wish to watch the whole presentation again at some point with the videos. The QR code on the little slides isn't big enough in my experience when I tested it out, but I believe the QR code on your handout with the scores should be big enough. And I'll also have one at the end of the presentation, so if you'd like to snap a picture of that, you can have the videos, which are all just from YouTube. So. But the idea of frames came out of an in-person lesson, and I still use it today. And like I said, it's nothing super famous or in-depth research, but it is something kind of inspired by a teacher. If you're familiar with the book Teach Like a Champion by Doug Lemov, this is for classroom teachers. He also has a companion book called Practice Perfect, which is both for teachers and students, anyone who wants to become better at a skill. And he says one of the greatest things a teacher can provide, or an excellent coach, is a really clear, well-packaged direction or idea or topic. So frames, it's just a short word that I use to work with my students on something that we've built up over the lessons, and we can quickly accomplish things. Particularly, we can have some fun, and what I find most valuable about it is it gets to the heart of artistry, maybe before they're even ready to play the whole piece. So, beginning of the semester here, where we're about to have a studio class, and what am I going to play? You don't have to play the whole piece. You can play some of your piece, and we're going to work on the frames. So I hope you find this useful. Let's dive in a little bit more and find out what we're talking about with frames. So how frames function in visual art. So we'll start there, because we're all familiar with that. The form interacts with the art in such a dynamic way that the frame can sometimes become an extension of the art itself. It marks the physical boundaries of that artwork, like a canvas or a print. And in a more practical vein, the frame also serves as a structure that might hold up that piece of art or keep it steady, flat, or even elevated up to eye level. It directs our attention to that piece of art. And often, the physical frame can suggest what you're going to see inside of it, its style, its character, or the type of art that might be within. Here's a frame, kind of hard to see. This is a Polaroid. A Polaroid frame with nothing in it. Think about what might be inside of that image versus another frame. What kind of art you might see inside of that frame versus this frame. What might you expect to see inside of that? Any thoughts? What would you expect inside the Polaroid? What kind of a picture? What image? A snapshot. Great. Some action maybe. What else? These are back in style now, right? You can get your little Instagram cameras. That makes you feel old, right? I remember when I had a regular Polaroid camera. Maybe a casual family photo. Something in the moment. What about the middle frame? What would you expect to see in that gold frame?
A Monet.
A Monet. What else would you expect to go with that frame?
A very nice frame.
Say it.
I would say a very nice frame as the centerpiece.
Like a centerpiece.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Very nice frame, like a centerpiece.
A formal portrait.
A formal portrait. Maybe an oil painting. What's that?
Yeah, Old Masters.
Old Masters, yes. Anything else? What about the silver frame on the right? What do you expect to see in that? Where do you expect to see that?
On a tabletop, and it's a wedding.
A tabletop and it's a wedding photo and it's in black and white, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like a stock photo at Target before you
Yeah,
purchase
right.
it, right? They tell you what needs to be in there. Some sort of portrait of a family member, right? And that should be on your desk or on a tabletop, right? So all these frames tell us a little bit about what we would expect to see in them. And even the middle one, you might see that accompanied by like a little cord that says "Don't touch," right? There might be some wire under that, or you might see it in Art museum says, don't even come near this frame. There's a lot being communicated by that frame. It says, this is expensive, this is important, don't come near it. So the frame is really communicating a lot. Or this frame says, this, my family is special to me. These are the people I want to have on my desk. And this one says, that moment was special to me and I wanted to capture it. Even if it's not a professional photo, here it is. And they all tell us something about whatever's inside the frame, where we have an expectation based on what we said today. So the frame becomes part of the experience of the art itself, or at least when we have an expectation that goes along with it. This image below, has anyone seen this before? This is called The Girl with the Balloon.
Yes.
Yes.
That's,
2021 conference doesn't count if you saw it there.
no, I just remember.
This is called The Girl with the Balloon. This is an anonymous piece of street art by the British artist Banksy. He's an anonymous artist. We don't know his face. We just know his pseudonym is Banksy. And just like most graffiti and street art, the canvas and the frame is the environment itself. So in this image, which has been photographed by someone, we see this picture of a little girl here holding a balloon, and the staircase behind her, the little utility box right next to her, and the ground are all forming a frame around her. Banksy chose to put her there because she's beautifully framed by this actual staircase. And then on the staircase it also says, there is always hope behind her. This image was later copied and framed by Banksy, and eventually it went to auction at Sotheby's. The reinvented canvas, and notice the formal frame around it, changed the relationship between the art and the frame. What used to be graffiti is now, or street art, is now framed art. Not the least of which is now you can move this around, right? If you want this in your living room, now you can buy it. So this resulted in a very unusual day at the art auction once Banksy put this in a frame. Here's an extreme example of the frame becoming a piece of the art itself.
No sooner did the gavel come down to mark the sale of Banksy's Girl with Balloon for a record $1.4 million, did the picture start to slip out of its frame into shreds below. The anonymous artist claims to be behind the stunt. On Instagram, he posted a photo of his prank with the caption, "Going, going, gone." In a later post, he explained how he did it. And it seems this stunt was years in the making. He claims he built the shredder into the painting's frame in case it ever sold at auction.
400,000, 400,000, 600,000, last chance. And selling for 860,000.
Witnesses couldn't believe what they were seeing. We can only imagine what the buyer was thinking.
Right? Apparently it's now worth even more than it sold for because of this extreme interaction and surprise with the shredding frame. Has anyone seen that before? Isn't that wild? Can you imagine if you were the buyer? This is an extreme example, for sure. Now in its shredded version, this has a new name. This piece of art is called Love is in the Bin. And it highlights the capacity for a frame to interact with its contents in a really dynamic way. I'm not suggesting that we go that far today, but just to sort of get your imaginations thinking about what a frame can do. As we consider musical frames next, we need to understand that they too have a function, but also a form, and they create expectations and tensions around the music inside that we perform. So the function of a musical frame is very similar to a function of a frame in visual art. It's going to mark instead chronological boundaries instead of physical boundaries. It's going to direct audience attention for a moment in time instead of in a physical space. It's going to suggest a style and a character, and it's also going to become part of the performance itself. So let's talk a little bit about the essential ingredients of a frame, and then we're going to look at some examples from concert artists and craft our own a little bit later. So first, what do we need to make a frame? Well, since music takes place in temporal space rather than in physical space, like visual art, our primary means of marking the boundaries of that space is with time. So, as we craft frames around performances, the number one ingredient of that frame is time. And when observing piano performances especially, this time frame begins the moment that we sit down on the bench. You could maybe argue it begins the moment we step out on stage, if we're coming from off stage. But we'll see a couple of frames here where the artist is in the middle of a longer recital, and so they've maybe bowed and then sat down on the bench again. And this begins a shift from preparing to play the instrument, which we all have to figure out when we find a new instrument, to preparing to play the piece. So first of all, we have to deal with a little bit of housekeeping, right? Sometimes we sit down at the bench and maybe your blouse is long and you want to make sure you're not sitting on it, or your sleeves need to be pulled back, or if you're Martha Argerich, you need to make sure your hair is back because hers is not up. And I'm taking my inspiration from her today as I age. I'm going to just let the long hair go. And then when we actually begin to play the piece, this is when we bring our hands to the instrument. And this is another gesture or cue that kind of begins or marks time, I should say, in our frame. We've all witnessed, I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times with your students, I'm sure you've done it too, a false start. This happens a lot. I've seen this when I judge competition. Someone will go to play and then they stop. They put their hands back, or they put their hands on the keyboard and then they take them away. And there's just something about that moment that says there was an expectation created that's then not fulfilled. And it's not terrible when you're watching it, but you think about how's that student feeling in that moment? How's that performer feeling? Because they looked like they were about to do something and then they didn't. They had that false start. Similarly, at the end of the piece, there's this transition that marks the end of the piece and the return to our conscious self. Like, here's Amanda. Now I'm here in real life with you. Instead of the person who was performing that piece, it's back to me. Sorry. So we need to think about this like we would if we were in theater, almost. Thinking about the equivalent of breaking character. Once the piece is over, we're still in the character of that piece, and the moment that we break that character and come back to our normal self is when that frame is kind of broken around the piece. So time is so important for this, but also gesture is a huge part of time. Gesture is really how we get our hands to the instrument, but it also includes our breath, and it also includes the cue behind that gesture. It's not just a physical thing, it's much more than that, and we'll get into the details of that as the main meat of our talk today. Similarly, it takes a lot of time to get your hands back to neutral after you perform a piece. I often recommend to my students that they go to their lap, but it doesn't have to be that their hands go to their lap as their neutral cutoff, if you will. If you're thinking about playing chamber music or playing in a larger ensemble, you think about that cutoff and then what happens with your instrument as the conductor tells you to put your hands down. So we think of this as the beginning cue, I call it hands to piano, and then the cutoff or hands to neutral back to the lap. And this often has a lot to do with our feet too, right, as pianists, because this is connected to our pedal. The final ingredient of your frame then is probably the most neglected. At least I feel like it's the most neglected in my practice, and I notice it especially more and more with my students, and that's their attention. Paying attention to what you're going to do, paying attention to what's going on around you. Attention is the ingredient that separates an artistic frame from a casual frame. Something that's planned versus something that's spontaneous. And that's not to say that spontaneity is bad, but if we're trying to teach our students to be more artistic and thoughtful about their performances, then planning them sometimes can be quite good. Just like planning a presentation can be quite good. So we want things to be successful rather than haphazard, and the number one ingredient, I argue, is the last one on my list, is our attention. From the moment that we sit on the bench, or our student sits on the bench, arguably sooner, maybe backstage, maybe as they walk on stage to play the next piece, we can be attending to the energy of the room. What's going on out in the hall? What's the acoustic like in the space? What's our own mental clutter? What just happened backstage that we need to forget about? Or what happened 2 hours ago that we really need to get out of our head and be in the moment to perform? All of this is vying for our attention. And then we add a new venue, a new piano, and a new audience to the mix. It's essential that we train paying attention to something. Otherwise, it's going to be a free-for-all, and everything will vie for our attention on stage. So we will combat that with intention, and we will pay attention intentionally to space, self, and audience as we try to craft our frames. So this is the real meat of the rest of our day, where we're going to go with this as we craft some together. But before we do that, I thought it would be fun to look at what some other artists do with their frames, including some that are very dear to us. I have a Sean Chen frame that I had to find on the internet, because if you were at our state conference this summer, he was electrifying. And there was one thing that happened at the end of his performance, and I was like, that is the most crazy frame I've ever seen in my life, and I wish I'd videotaped it. And then I found he performed it with the same exact frame, interestingly, for another audience, and we'll get to watch it today. So let's go through a few examples. As we look at these examples, I have some things to think about for us. Oops. We'll focus on the opening first, the beginning of the piece. And these are questions you can also sit with your students. You can ask them in a studio class. But it's fun to do these, and I found this useful online for teaching, to do them with videos, because no one has to be prepared for studio class to show a video and then talk about it. But we can all learn from it. So as we watch, how much time is passing from when the artist sits down, or in some cases they're already sitting, but between when they begin their sort of housekeeping and self-care to when they actually play the piece? And what's happening during that time? Pay attention to the little details. You're going to see a lot of hair, a lot of managing hair, interestingly. That's a big deal on stage. Everyone has to take care of their hair, long or short. But you'll see a lot of hair. What else besides hair? It's okay to mention, you'll see that, mention it, that's fine. But what else besides the hair is happening between sitting down and first sound? Which gestures are related to creating the first sounds of the piece? This is what's fascinating to me. Is I think that, especially if you slow some of these videos down, you can almost see a moment where the artist is in go mode, and it's multiple seconds before the piece begins. And I just want to say, what are you thinking about right there in that moment? So we'll try to get in their head a little bit. What gestures are related to creating the first sounds, which are not? And finally, do you think that the opening gesture matches what you would expect for the piece? Does it reflect the character of the opening sound, or are they in conflict with one another? A lot of times I think we'll find that there's not a lot of tension here, but this is a great question to ask your students, or if you videotape them, have a conversation as you watch with them their own video. Does this really match the sound you're going for here? So let's look at a few examples with these in mind. These questions are on your handout if you want to have them nearby. We'll start with one of my favorites. Oh, sorry, how does this impact your question? You know that question. Great. One of my favorite opening frames of the day, okay? This is the beginning of the second ballade, Chopin's second ballade. I won't say anything, just see impressions. I'll ask you after. What did you notice? I see smiles and nods. What did you notice about his gesture? Yeah.
I think the frame sets the tone of what he wants the audience to feel. But I noticed that his eyes were gazing off.
Okay.
So it kind of made me feel, I don't know, wandering.
Interesting. So I'm going to repeat that because I know we're recording and there are people watching online, but let me see if I capture this correctly. So you felt like it was pretty congruent, his frame with the sound.
Yeah.
And then there were some eye wandering.
It made me, I felt distracted.
That distracted you. Okay.
Just a moment.
Okay. Other observations,
But
yes.
I had the opposite, that had the opposite effect on me.
Mhm.
I thought it sort of, didn't he sort of look towards the heavens, and that prepared me for this ethereal beginning.
Okay.
That's what happened for me.
So you felt he looked off to the heavens,
Yeah.
specifically the left, right?
Yeah.
He looked sort of back
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
back of the stage,
Yeah.
and this created an expectation for something ethereal.
Yes.
Okay, so congruent. Other thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay, lots of hands. This is great. Deborah.
I felt like he was not committed. You know, he felt like he was
Yeah.
hesitant. I almost felt like he was gonna put his hands back down
Yeah.
again, think again, and, I don't know, I just felt like, I was surprised when he finally started the piece.
Interesting. So you felt like he was not committed, and there was something incongruent in that approach to the keyboard
Yeah.
that didn't feel like he was prepared to start. Or,
Yeah.
Okay,
Felt like felt uncertain or something.
uncertain. There were many more hands. Yes.
I think he almost mirrored the tempo and the gesture in the air, so it was already in play. Sometimes I'll tell my students, like infinity pool, you're just
Infinity
there's no step, you're already in the water. So I felt it was kind of that, but it's interesting that
Yeah.
you interpreted that as indecision. I
Yeah.
thought that maybe it was reflecting the actual character of the opening. It, you know, dum dum. That's a little bit
Yeah.
nebulous as it is. So maybe he was just getting into that headspace
Okay, so we.
via gestures.
Okay, so the gesture matched the opening gesture. Am I summarizing this well?
Yeah.
And you feel like it was just kind of like jumping into an infinity pool. It was already going.
Yes.
And
Gesture
we
was
can
in
watch it
play.
again, but there's like whatever he uses to play the piece. It's already he does it like 2 or 3 times before. I think
Yeah.
there was one over here, and then James. Oh, and we can keep talking. I have so many examples.
It seems
of
like
this
every
stuff.
gesture that we've talked about has a positive and a negative so far.
And that's a big takeaway, but I'll share that in a minute. Let's finish the
I was
other
just
observations.
I was gonna say, like, mimicking the rhythm, getting his tempo going before.
So that mimicking the rhythm, he had the tempo going, that matched a gesture, or there was a gesture that matched his first gesture, James?
Yeah, it was almost as if he started playing before his hands reached the keys.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like when you're walking on an escalator, you see the steps inclining and you anticipate your first gesture when you actually step onto it.
Oh, that's a beautiful image, imagining like an escalator that's already going and you
Yeah.
just kind of imagine stepping on it. It was like he had that imagination going before he started. Did I capture that? Other thoughts?
Oh, you know, I was getting into, you know, when he was going to lay his hands on the keys, I thought that was beautiful, but then he snapped his thumbs just before he played. I don't know if that was something mental, I didn't seem to fit.
There was something in the snapping up of the thumbs that didn't fit with that gesture, caught your attention. Yeah, I've never noticed that. I'll have to watch it again. That's interesting, yeah.
One more thing for me, I felt anxious.
You felt anxious,
Yeah,
okay.
I was like, come on, play.
Yeah, right, when are we gonna hear the thing, right? Get to the damn. Other thoughts?
There was a fixing of his coat in the process of coming up.
Ooh, now we have to watch it again, because you found many more things
I
than
think
I did.
that's what I was saying, but
Yeah,
because
he did.
nobody has said it, I thought, maybe I didn't see right.
So maybe there was actually some accidental housekeeping. He had to
Yeah.
fix his coat, and that
Just with
created
the
like a
one
false
hand.
start, but then
Right.
the false start was maybe also married to this rhythm and gesture that he had already going in his head. I don't know, we're not in his head, right? All we can do is guess what's going on here. Let's watch it again because it's so short, because now I want to see a couple of things that you all have pointed out and see if anything else comes to mind with this gesture. And,
It seemed like he was about to start a conversation. I'm like, yes, what are you gonna say? I can't
Ooh.
wait to
Okay.
hear more. So I'm taken back in.
So now he's drawing us in
Yeah,
with
yeah.
this sort of slow gesture. Deborah?
So, I didn't really pick up that those hesitating motions that he was doing moving
Yeah.
up was actually him feeling the pulse.
Yeah, I
And now
think so.
seeing it the second time, I see he's actually doing that pulse. I felt like that was like hesitating, like he was almost not
Yeah.
sure, how to start.
Yeah,
I do think it's a deliberate
yeah.
preparation of the gesture, if you will, to play, whoever said that, but it's also married to the gesture of get to the piano, right? And so often we think, okay, what's the first gesture to play the piece? But we don't think about connecting it to the get to the piano part. And for him, it's all there in one, whether we notice it or not, although the thumbs thing is weird. I gotta say, I've never noticed that.
I didn't see it that time.
I wonder, I did see it that time. Oh, yeah, and I almost thought, I wanna watch it again and see if it's the end of a 4-bar phrase, almost, if that's like the final cue. You know, if he's thinking 1 and 2 and 3 and bum, bum. If that's the case, then I don't like this, but that's my personal thing, but one more comment?
For me, when I start off soft, I am always fearful that I miss a note. So for me, if I have to start off slow and soft, I kind of do it just a tiny bit strong, because I don't know, like it throws me completely off when I'm just like, oh, I missed a couple notes because I'm starting off so soft. I don't know.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That it's hard to start soft, right? We have more fear, I think, about starting soft than anything, right? And that's really why this presentation came to life, honestly. A lot of it is about starting and ending soft things. And I have a lot of soft examples, but I think they're harder for exactly why you said. And with a student, especially teenagers, they're extremely awkward, right? Silence, soft, slow, long is awkward. It's just, so we have to really plan it. And you know what, the thing I found is that it's fun. It's fun to come into this space with the students and explore what they can do in these moments. Okay, let's look at another one. I'm glad we have until 12. This is great. If you were at the PMTA conference this summer, we were trying not to share spoilers about Van Cliburn because it was during Van Cliburn. Here is another soft opening frame, Scriabin Sonata number 10 from our gold medalist. Here, take a look at this frame with the same questions in mind. I believe in this one he's already sitting down. I can't remember. I thought there was an
internal moment at first, like his eyes were closed, like inside, and then he opened them, and then he was present with what he was about to do.
There was an internal moment, and then suddenly something clicked, and then he was present with the audience.
Yes, so, yeah.
It's like he grounded himself to the moment before he started.
It was like he grounded himself to the moment before he started. Was there something that drew your attention to that?
Just the way he almost went totally quiet, and it was like total quiet and closing his eyes, that he excluded everything from around him, and the only thing that was important was what was in front of him and under his hands, and that to me is grounding, to bring yourself to the moment. I don't know if that's the right word.
So, would you agree, so with part of the grounding, there was a lot of silence before this one, right? A lot. Like if this is a frame and we're thinking about it as a visual frame, this was a thick frame because it had a lot of space around it. Elaine.
I, a long time ago, learned that one of the things that was helpful to start a piece is to listen to it in your head before you start. And that's kind of what I think he was doing. He was just quietly listening to the opening of the piece in his mind, just to get his focus. And that's another thing I felt, that a lot of that was about bringing his focus into what he had to do. I'm not so sure it was paying attention to the audience or any of that. I think it was bringing it all in here so that he could start that quiet sound anymore.
So he was doing internal listening to kind of how he wanted the piece to go, and maybe not paying attention to the audience, but paying attention to his own internal thought process, artistic process.
Maybe detaching from the audience.
Sorry, say that louder.
Maybe detaching himself from the audience.
Maybe detaching himself from the audience. Did anyone feel distanced from him or pulled in by that space? One or the other? Yeah?
I felt that, I don't know whether it was intentional, but the effect of that long silence for me was it forced us to lean in and be in the moment with him.
So the longer the silence, actually, the more you draw in the audience, typically, rather than the opposite.
But I see
If
it as a
it's done
different
well.
thing, like his perception of the audience and the audience's perception of him. It's two different set of things. So by him doing that, the audience draws in, but he's actually drawing out into his own internal world, in a sense.
No, that totally makes sense, that he's going inward, but the audience is actually being drawn out of themselves to join his world through that silence. So it's a very powerful thing. Yeah?
How long is too long to wait to play?
Oh,
If you're counting,
that's
For
an
me, I like-
excellent question.
count or listen to measures,
How long is too long is the question.
start.
I don't know if I have an answer on the too long, but I would say there's definitely a too short. Y'all been there when it's not enough time? You certainly haven't taken enough time, or you haven't planned if it's gonna be short. That's a very, for me, performing, if it's a short, skinny frame, that's a thing you really have to practice, because the mental game happens usually somewhere else, you know, while you're bowing, while you're walking on stage. Sit down and play. I think we might have one of those as our examples, but the skinnier the frame, the more dangerous, in my opinion. The bigger the frame, at least the more time you have to prepare. We've seen how the audience is drawn in here. I suppose there's a point of no return where you could alienate them completely, and we don't want that to happen either. But I don't have a hard and fast answer.
If you wait too long, you start to hear it after a while, a little restlessness in the audience. You know, they start to fidget in their seats and all, and then maybe that's past the point where you might have lost them at that point.
I often tell my students, if you're really listening, the audience will also be really listening. So silence just for the sake of silence is probably going to let people get restless, but if you're actually attending to something and then producing it and listening to it with them, there will be a journey together that's usually seamless. And same things like during rests. If people are quiet, it's because they're listening with you. Go ahead, Miriam.
I think that if you're gonna have the audience wait for you, I think a constant some sort of gesturing or some sort of activity, you're not just sitting there with your eyes closed and not motionless, but doing something. I felt like he was almost, when he did his hair, it was almost part of keeping the time going, you know, of the prep time going, so the audience doesn't lose their attention. He's always doing something.
We weren't worried that he had checked out, because he was always doing something. Notice it shifted though from housekeeping, and that has to happen, especially raising and lowering the bench. You're not going to see that as much at Van Cliburn, but that's a real daily thing for our students especially, and that's real housekeeping that needs to happen. And then somewhere that transitions to taking space for the piece to actually play the piece. Remember, we're going from playing the instrument to playing the piece. And I think there is a shift in him there that we observe. All right, how about one that's completely different now? I heard this is a favorite. We've probably all played it or taught it at some point. Let's see this opening frame. I'm sure there are many others I could have found on the internet, but here's one.
With his hands on his lap. He could have been preparing the audience that way, and then this piece is such a more bombastic, and maybe it needs that kind of start to it once you've prepared, like on your lap, you know what I'm saying?
So that's like piece 2, right? The playing the piece part.
He's playing in the mood of the piece.
Yeah, so you felt there was a congruence there between his gesture and the mood of the piece.
Yes.
I see lots of nodding there. This one,
Like
go ahead.
dive right in.
Dive right, yes, yes.
Right.
So with the shorthand of good teachers having like really quick buzzwords that save time in the lesson, minus frames. But another one I use as a particular kind of frame is called the pounce. This is a pounce. This is kind of a textbook pounce, although it looks like he delays, I think. There is a slight delay in his gesture, but there's also an extra delay, I think, because of the Bluetooth. So it looks like he gets there and then the sound starts. But there's like a little, if we put him in slow-mo, I think you'd see that he stops on the surface of the key and actually interrupts the gesture. Whether that's a conscious choice for the technique of the sound or if that's not conscious, I don't know. Other thoughts? Yeah.
It seemed like the first note was percussion, like he was striking a drum or a gong instead of, your usual piano thing.
It sounded like he was playing percussion with his first gesture.
His motion was
Yeah.
percussion.
Nice. Sounded like percussion. Did I see another hand in this corner? Okay. How about one more? One more. We'll go back to Van Cliburn. Bar top out of doors with air conditioning.
Ones that start, the quiet pieces take much longer in preparation of hands on keys. And the two loud ones that you just played, you open up with a more bombastic sound, just kind of jump on there.
So there's, so far, in these examples, a correlation between how the piece starts. If it's calm and it's quiet, that's one kind of gesture. And if it's loud and bombastic, then there's a matching gesture that usually goes with that. It's fast. It's more like a pounce. I call it for shorthand. This one I did want to show you in slow-mo. If I can do it quickly, I'll do it. I don't want to take all of your time to put it in YouTube settings. Ever do YouTube in half speed? Super fun to see this gesture in half speed, but as I watch him in slow-mo, watch his face as he prepares to play. Oh, sound good. But I do like watching his eyes, because that moment that we're talking about where I to play, okay, I see that note or that cluster, and I'm going for it. Like it's. Back to, sorry. See, back to full screen. I'm gonna skip to go for now. We have lots of closing frames from her. Okay, so for our closing frames, you've done a great job connecting all of these things in such a wonderful discussion today. One thing we didn't talk about that we'll do especially for closing frames is the role of the audience. For opening frames, we were asking, does it match the mood? We were asking how long is the preparatory gesture? Kind of how big is that preparatory gesture? We're just going to flip it for closing frames. How long is the follow-through of their final note? So after they finish making sound, that last articulation, what do we have? And then when would an audience member feel invited to clap? This is my favorite thing to do in studio class, because then you tell the rest of the class it's your job to make it evident to the artist that the song is over, and that's when you clap, right? So no one wants to be the first one to clap at a concert, so you have to be sort of invited in, and we can do that with how we time this. So let's look at another Chopin ballade, closing gesture, closing frame, with these questions in mind, also on your handout. Okay, thoughts on that one?
Why didn't he stand?
So this was in a recital of all 4 ballades. Why didn't he stand was the question. And that he was on our second ballade when we looked at the opening frame that floated up ethereally. So he was playing all 4 in succession. And so
Okay, that makes sense.
actually clapping here, I don't know what he said or what the program said about inviting clapping, but clearly people wanted to clap even between all the ballades.
Yeah.
So here is his closing frame. Did you feel invited to clap? Let's start there. Yeah, I see some nods. What made you feel welcome to clap? His hands came off and into his lap. Yes, that's probably one of our clearest universal communicators of it's over, hands in the lap, right? It's like when the conductor's arms come by their side, you know you can clap at the symphony. What else? Did you feel invited to clap? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
It kind of gave mixed signals in a
Okay.
sense, because the hands came off and you thought, okay, it's done. And went on his lap, but he was looking off to the side, so he wasn't like
Yeah, yeah.
acknowledging
He
the
wasn't
audience
clear,
at
yeah.
all. So
Mhm.
maybe that's why, because he wasn't expecting people to clap, perhaps that's why he did that. He
Mm-hmm.
seemed almost shy and reticent.
Mm-hmm. Now we've seen this artist twice, and we've seen this artist look over his left shoulder twice. So the question is this part of the program, maybe, or is this part of his performance style? You can look
That's
at
true.
more video of him to see. This might just be one of his performance tics, is a left shoulder. Or this is something he associates with the ballades, that there's some presence, over here that comes on stage to him, or a muse, if you will, that's over there. And a lot of these ballades begin in an ethereal way, where there's the 4th in particular. I think I have the 4th on here as an example. It's like it starts from nowhere, and yet you can't start from nowhere. Right? We are not mist. We're humans on a bench, so finding that way to begin. But I noticed his eyes as well, and that could have been trying to say, don't clap.
He's looking away from the audience.
Yes.
I think it's something that is a habit for him. I'm getting distracted. I'm going to look this way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
hear that.
Mm-hmm.
James
It's-
has some personal.
Oh.
No,
I
you
don't
should
know
say.
if it should be on the record though.
Oh, can we wipe the record? Can we redact the
You want me
comment?
to redact? I can
Can we
redact.
redact it, Jonathan?
Someone looking right at the audience. I'm
Mhm.
trying to imagine that. And I think it would depend on how long he was looking at me, but I would feel a little uncomfortable maybe.
It did happen once to me with Jeremy Dank. Anybody heard him live? He played some Schumann, and there was a little humorous quip of a quotation earlier in the piece, and no joke, he looked out and almost winked at us when it happened. And I've never forgotten that moment. And it's made me think sometimes, engaging that this is something we're sharing isn't terrible, but he definitely chose that and not his Bach English suite that he was playing on the program to smile at us. It was, I think, a very conscious choice of when he would engage and when he wouldn't engage, like a theater performance. Did you remember?
Yes, I remember. It was the first time I heard Long perform
Yeah,
live.
yeah.
And I was in the 4th or 5th row, I was really close.
Yes.
And he has this way of moving his head back and forth
Right.
and looking this way.
Yeah.
And then looking that. And he's not really looking at you, but I felt like he was looking
Yes,
at me.
yes.
It was disturbing until I decided to stop watching him.
Yeah.
It was fine.
I
But
think I was at that concert too. Was it in Philadelphia?
no, this was in Denver.
Oh.
Denver.
But
I was
he-
at that concert in Denver.
He
Yeah.
does that.
It
Yeah.
it bothered me for the first 5 minutes that he was playing, and then I just said, stop looking.
Well, we won't get into the weeds of what happens while they're performing the whole piece today, but it happens before they start, right? This idea of where their attention is, whether it's their eyes, their ears, the rest of their body, even their posture. We saw with the Bartok out of doors a change of posture when the piece began that was related to the gesture and the internal prep time that's part of his frame. So we don't have to like it. I think we just have to acknowledge that it's there and be ready to help our students craft this. And again, know that there's sort of a line here of tension, that you're usually in harmony with our frame and how we play, but there can be a tension that's not in harmony, and that's okay. But somewhere along that continuum, we're going to experience something that sort of aligns with what we expect as the listener and what actually happens. And maybe, like we had earlier, it could change. One time you see someone perform something, you think, oh, that kind of surprised me that they began right there. But then the second time you watch them perform, and you're like, oh yeah, that felt totally natural to me. So this can change. Yeah, last comment on this one, and then we'll do another example.
So something different that I liked in his is toward the end, he actually stood while he was playing, or took his, put his weight on his legs, took his bottom off the bench.
It looked like he was going to stand.
Yeah,
Yes.
it did, but I almost thought he was standing,
Yeah.
but he
Noticed that.
then sat back down again. But it was the power that he got from that extra strength.
Weight in his feet.
Weight.
I'm glad you mentioned that he sort of moved his whole body, particularly his trunk and feet, through that last note. Can we watch that again? Because that's what I'm talking about, follow through. It's not just what we think about the starting sound, like here, but it's like a whole body thing. And this, I'll go back and show you one more time. See his weight shift up, and then he finally sat back on the bench, like all the way through that last note. It was a full body follow through. Again, planned, I would guess, I would hope, but this is what we would want to discuss with our students. How much of your body do you want to use to follow through? We'll talk about it. It'll be craft. Okay, a couple more, and then we're going to make some of these. Here's Sean, concert artist from, whoops, not yet. From June. And this is a piece he played, his arrangement of The Sorcerer's Apprentice. So we're going to watch his closing frame. About his closing frame. Anything from the end of the sound to when he took his bow? You noticed? Go ahead.
I mean, I liked the gesture he did. I liked the way he came off like that. It was strong and decisive. You knew the piece was done. He waited a minute for the audience to kind of like adjust, and then he stood up and bowed.
Nice analysis. Yeah, for the very last sound, it was really abrupt, and then he froze. That's another key word I use a lot. Are you going to freeze there? When you do that, are you going to freeze, or are you going to immediately fall and like follow through fully to your lap, or are you going to freeze there? And you noticed that he took a chance to freeze after his last gesture, and that was helpful. It was kind of everybody do that exhale. Yeah, it's over. We all know it's over, but it still is surprising. And then breath. Anything else? Anyone notice? Yeah, Jonathan.
What I loved, and I remember when he played that at the conference, I loved that he felt as entertained by the music as we did.
Entertained, but he was entertained too. He was living it. Anything else? Yeah.
I liked his last gesture, next to the last gesture, I guess, kind of like a surprise. And he communicated that to the audience. Even if the audience might know that that surprise is coming up, it still felt like a surprise, and I think he really engaged the audience with that.
Did you happen to know, that's excellent. I wanted to talk about that too, that he really surprised us. How did he do that? Even though we all knew it was coming, he still created a really great surprise with that ending gesture. Did anybody notice some choices he made? We're not going to say whether they're good or bad, but he made some choices that helped that work. What did you notice?
I think right before that surprise, he looked really relaxed. Like, probably he rehearsed that ahead of time, but he looked really relaxed, almost as if, okay, I'm good. And then, and I think that could have created some letting go in the audience so that it creates more surprise for us than when the final thing comes through.
So
Could we watch it again?
Yes, let's watch it again. Because now we actually kind of have two frames. It's like a false frame.
His hands actually go on his lap. Right
I
before
didn't
that.
notice that.
Yeah.
He didn't give it away.
Yeah.
Someone said we didn't notice it the first time, but his hands went on his lap before that last gesture.
Hands on his lap.
Did you happen to
interpret that as is he done? And then he's got that little bit, when you put your hand on your lap, you kind of think you're done.
Right. And the risk there is that people who don't know the piece would possibly clap, right? Did you notice what he did specifically with the hand?
One hand is on the
One at a time, so there was never like a lot of silence with both hands on the lap,
Right.
but just enough to let you think it was ending, and then
Yes. seemed like it was definitely choreographed, looking at it in a, second time.
Other observations?
I found myself holding my breath because I wasn't sure whether it was the ending, but I liked the way he did it because he did create silence and then boom, he woke you back up again with that. And because if you were of course you gotta hear what comes before that, but the way you just showed the example of how it was very quiet as it kind of the apprentice came down to the end and you weren't sure. And even though he may have I didn't actually catch his hands going in his lap so much as he was creating a silence. And that silence gave you the ending, the way you wanted it, as a surprise.
Expectation, right? Everything is about creating expectation.
Well, he held everybody in his hand. The audience had to have been right in his hand because otherwise somebody who wasn't listening would have clapped at an inappropriate time and broken that jewel of silence.
I love that jewel of silence. All right, I love that. So we didn't clap at the wrong time. All right, I think you're going to have a feeling about this next one. This also was the one we got to witness at the conference, and I don't know how I feel about it, but it's just so exciting. Next one. Liggity Etude 13. Anybody know the Devil's Staircase Etude? It's like you're going up a staircase, never ends, never ends, never ends, never ends. So again, not our performance, which was electrifying, but another one, and he does the exact same frame he did for us. So that was really long, I heard. I love how he used the pedal. Other observations?
I mean, it's kind of against what we usually tell our students, that hands and feet release together, but this was obviously a calculated gesture, musical idea. And so in this case, the end of the piece was his head lift.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, that's how he kind of broke character, was that the head had been down in this position through the whole frame, right? His follow through went to here, and then it was another freeze for a heck of a long time. I didn't time it, but it's like, what, 10 seconds? Something like that. Yes?
You could also see, as the sound was diminishing, his body was moving closer. So it was almost like his body was mirroring like the diminuendo of the sound.
I never noticed that, but now I want to watch it again. His body was almost mirroring the diminuendo that the pedal was controlling.
At the very end, he was like, his hands were like this, and then he was kind of coming closer and coming in.
Leaning forward.
Leaning forward, yeah.
One more comment, and then I have a question for you all. Go ahead.
Have you seen the score? Does it say that like tap the chord and use the pedals?
I did not get I should have snipped, I don't know. Does anybody know?
It probably has the instructions.
Instructions, yeah.
One of those niente.
But are there instructions for the body besides the foot?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think so, but maybe another
that's
piece
what's like. That's a good question. I don't remember if there is something that says get off of there. But
Oh,
our impression of that. So someone said this is what you don't tell students to do, right? Or this is the opposite of what you tell students to do. Feet and hands coordinate for that cutoff. And so right there, all the piano teachers in the room go, oh! You know, don't do that, right? Don't do that. But so why? What was the effect of that for us, other than shocking every piano teacher in the room? What's the effect of that choice to you? And it might be different. Like some people loved that first cue, and other people hated it.
What immediately came to my mind was in, like, let's say, for example, one of those Japanese animes where they're suddenly victorious after fighting the enemy, and then this guy who was so amazing and powerful, and he just does this at the end, like he just it's almost like he just was the master of it all. I just like finished it, you know. And then it's sort of like, the sound that kept coming from the pedal, it's almost like it just kept resonating, that whole sense of victory. Just kind of kept you in the moment. Like.
Interesting. Okay, so a sense of victory relating to Japanese anime. I love that image. Other thoughts? Oh, well, we'll go in the front row first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I felt also maybe it allows the audience to savor that
that's
victory.
the good word there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
savoring that ending, and was he savoring it too? Maybe the first time he did it, but it's so choreographed, hard to know. But he's probably savoring it too, and helping the audience to savor it.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect word. I'm glad you went first, because I was gonna say something similar, but not that word.
Savor?
It's perfect. I was just gonna say it kept it alive.
Yeah.
You know, felt like he was dancing almost, with the motion, you know, dancing is just motion. And the fact that he didn't just keep his hands on the keys like that would have been so boring, you know, but it was a lot more alive and interesting.
So it's alive. You said he savored that sound. I love that word, savor. And I want you to think about what are some other choices he could have made there. You said one, leave your hands on the keys. That would just have been so flat.
Or just like kind of hold your hands there until it was done, like you were like immobilized, you know, until it was done.
There you go. He could have acted like he was frozen or immobilized in place, or what were you going to say?
Or, you know, come up instead of back.
Right. I think the boldness that we see is where he went with the gesture. The physical plane that he occupied was not our normal right up here kind of. We tend to act like conductors, but he took this physical plane and brought this into our awareness in a very dynamic way. Any other observations?
Well, he held us until the very last.
Yeah.
You know how you say, oh, that helped, he had us right in the palm of his hand. He held us in the ball of his foot.
He had us with the pedal, right, till the very end. That pedal, that listening to the
That's
decay.
what you're trying to do, affect your audience,
Did anyone get another impression besides victory from the ending? Like character. We're always trying to capture character or mood.
It's like Superman comes down and just lands. You know what I'm saying? Like, boom, he just lands.
I love that Superman crash.
Having the last word.
Having the last word.
Being the only person that feels this way, it was very negative, I think.
You felt like a negative character.
Didn't like both times he had his hands behind him, and people don't move like that.
Yeah, that's what I
There's
felt
something
too.
wrong.
I felt
Interesting.
sinister
Something
about
wrong.
it.
So this was not a positive character that he communicated.
I mean, the whole piece felt sinister, actually, all
Right.
those half steps, and, you know, it was just really cool, but it did feel a little like, I don't know, sinister is the word that's
Yeah,
coming
the
to
way
me.
his head was faced was also
Well, it's
very
very
unnatural and very, very
Everyone will know what it's
choreographed, if you want to use the word, that he knew exactly what he was doing at that ending. He choreographed every single move and how long it was, because letting the pebbles die gradually takes a real talent, because when you first meet, you just, the pebbles there, but how many people are patient enough to do what he did with that, had a kind of, it was, I saw choreography, because if you had a dance move that was going with this piece of music, it would be very dark, it would be very, not in the line of a ballerina, but in the gestures of modern dance, where it had angles and things, and when it stopped, and there was not emotion that was happening, because we were all waiting for the end or what happened next.
Okay, so I'm hearing a shift. We went from sort of this is a very positive ending to now it has a negative ending. Someone said someone doesn't, you know, this is not a position of victory, let's say. When your hands are behind your back, it's almost like you think about someone's hands being tied behind their back. It's a vulnerable position, it looked like, and his head being down.
Do something else, but it's being, there's
giving up.
No, I think it's positive.
Giving up, yes. Thank you for saying, because the sound kept going, and there was this artist who looked like they'd been like turned off almost. There was slight movement, but it almost was like someone shut him down. or this staircase exhausted him.
Yeah,
Was kind of, when you think about the circular devil staircase, the Escher picture, you know, you're always going up, but you're never getting to the top. And that's how the piece sounds. It just sounds like you're constantly climbing. And it's impossible to play too, but you're constantly climbing and you never reach the top, and then you just kind of keep crashing down but crashing up at the same time. It's this crazy dichotomy of effort and failure, and I think he captured that dichotomy with sound going without an artist going at the same time. It was very tense but engaging, however you interpreted it. But there was something just really unique about that frame, and I remember being like, oh my gosh, I wish he could come do that for us, because it was one thing when he was like 10 feet away from you too.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've looked at enough examples. We can start talking about what we're going to do with art. And you guys have already predicted. The unique challenges of frames tend to be the long, the sensitive, the slow, the soft. Things, especially to coordinate without pedal, that's a very different arm gesture than with pedal, like we saw with the Ligeti etude. That's a whole etude in how to cut off the pedal, right? The way he performed it. Soft, expressive beginnings. Abrupt, breathless beginnings. It seems like we find those more friendly in this group, but they are a thing. And then the other thing is a frame within a piece. That actually exists. Or if you're doing all 4 Chopin ballades, maybe you intend each ending to be a frame that sends you to another picture. Take a look at some of these examples. These are all within sonata movements, so hopefully there would be no applause within the audience. And these are Mozart sonatas, so they're not going to like bring people to their feet usually, modern audiences. But these happen with fermatas. These happen in variation sets all the time. And so let's look at, I think we have a conductor pianist. So this is a really lovely example of a frame, closing frame that becomes an opening frame beautifully. What do you notice there?
This beautiful motion of her hand that led our ear over to the beginning of the next one.
Beautiful motion of her hand that led our ear over to the next movement.
Right.
I think you said in the singular, the beautiful motion,
Yeah.
right? One motion connected that first movement to the second movement. What else did you notice?
Her eyes
Her eyes. What did you notice about her eyes?
just closed. Closed and she never opened.
Yeah, her facial expression really reflected what was going to happen next.
Thank you.
So besides the unity of her gesture and the facial expression, her eyes, did you feel like things were in concert with the character of the piece? Yeah, very harmonious with the character of the piece. Okay, and the follow through, did you feel like it was big, small, medium?
I would say nearly perfect.
Nearly, practically perfect.
Yeah.
Nearly perfect, right in the middle. Not too big, not too small. Okay. And I don't feel invited to clap, do you? Because this is saying the music is not over.
Yeah.
Did anyone notice the time? I didn't pick this clip because of the time, but of course I've watched it and watched it. What's that? Take it 3 seconds. Let's, any conductors, conduct this one with me. She'll often conduct a concerto from the keyboard. And this is a video, so maybe it's been edited as well. But I'm just going to conduct the pulse at the ending of the first movement and listen to how he gets to the second movement. So we're almost connected to that old phrase tempo.
Or one bar of the music.
Or one measure or one phrase of the next one. The tempo is changing, of course, between them a little bit, but there does seem to be like a metric connection between them, that the pulse never stops, in other words.
Yeah.
What the pulse is, I'm not quite clear, but the pulse never stops from one to the next. So that's an interesting way to manage that, if we have to teach that. And here's another one as she goes from Adagio to Allegretto.
Yeah, I was counting the pulse, it felt like that she did that right in the next one.
She connected that one as well.
Yeah, I
Pulse.
felt like I could feel 2, 3, 4. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
There's just a continuity between all the movements, like, there's some people who play sonata, I mean, especially big sonatas where people take a break, they'll, you know, reach for their handkerchief or relax their energy. I mean, this was none of that. At each break, it was just, here's what's, you know.
And to be perfectly fair, it is a video, so maybe it was edited. Maybe she did wipe her nose or adjust her hair, you know, and they just seamlessly edited that, but there's still that artistic choice of how's the timing gonna go there? It's a different kind of artistic choice, right? Because now you're a recording choice instead of a performing choice, but she wants that to reflect her performance. If it was edited there. I thought there might have been a little space where that video jumped and she could have been edited, but
Yeah.
it still
No, I
was
can't
that
say.
arc. Yeah,
I
Jamie.
mean, it looked like her hands just merely moved to the next place in the next movement without ever leaving or.
Yeah, it looked like her hands moved from one movement to the next as one organic continuity.
Just a sonata or something.
Yeah. So this brings up when we're working on a multi-movement piece with a student, I tend to do like a movement and then talk and then a movement and then talk. And as you get to that more performance stage, we have to work on this as a thing of connecting movement to movement. But my argument today is that you actually don't need to wait until that end of the performance preparation to start doing this. In fact, it might be wiser to start at the beginning. So with that in mind, a lot of these are, I would say, successful in the sense that they engaged us. Whether we love them and want to copy them, that's not what I'm saying today. These are not successful frames that we looked at that we should tell our students, do that Shan Chen closing frame. That's not the point. But what they did do, for the most part, was reflect an integrity of the score, the tempo marking, the character marking, the pedal markings, the length of the note. You know, we've all had that student who cuts off the note before it even ends. We're like, oh, no, that's a whole note. Hey, that's a whole note with a fermata, by the way. So, right, at least 4 beats. Yeah, right? More than 4 would be swell. So they reflect the integrity of the score. They complement the character or the mood of the piece. My big beef here is that they have to include ownership by the student. If you tell them to do what Shan Chen does or what you do, they're going to feel weird. And it's going to be like wearing a tweed blazer from your college professor when you're not a tweed blazer kind of girl. You know, you gotta own your own frame. And so letting the student explore it is part of the fun. And of course, you want to try to engage the audience. This is the performance to encourage them, engage them, and include them in the artistic journey. And of course, I think as we've seen from all these videos, they are totally practiced and rehearsed. They're intentional, they're full of intent, they're not haphazard, and I would argue that most of the frames I see from pre-college students are the haphazard type. When they come in and I see a good frame, I'm like, I know this is going to be good. And I try not to be biased by a good frame, but you can almost tell before the sound starts, this is going to be a good performance, because they're already thinking about the performance. So consistency is important that we get this going with them. Okay, let's do some tips. And if Miriam, would you be able to help me raise the lights a little bit, please, and make sure everybody has a packet of scores. We're going to try to craft some frames, get our energy flowing before lunch here. We'll do some opening frames in small groups, and then we'll take a pause and do some closing frames. So as you craft an opening frame, you should have these questions on your handout, the little handout. Miriam's got the scores here if anyone needs copies of the scores.
I've got a couple left.
Any
I
one?
does not have this one.
And while she's doing that, I have to have a disclaimer. I am not here to market music for Alyssa Milne or Pepperbox Jazz or Little Peppers. I'm not here on her behalf, but I just love these pieces. And I've probably done the most work with frames with my students because of these pieces, so they're getting highlighted today. If you don't know those books, Pepperbox Jazz or the Peppers series by Alyssa Milne, they are highly engaging, and you're getting a few 8-bar excerpts of a lot of them today. Other composers too, but she is by far the one I've had the most fun playing around with frames in. Okay, as you craft an opening frame in your group, I will assign you a score to talk about. Here's what I want you to discuss. What is the mood or the character of the first phrase? And if you've never played it, you're welcome to come sight read it on the piano or just explore the score and the clues you have there. How would you externalize the pulse? And this is what we want our students to do. Externalize is key here. They're like, oh yeah, I'm counting. Mm-hmm. How do you know your students are counting unless they externalize it for you? Some way, whether they count out loud, which they always hate, but it works so well. Other things could be breathing. I like the shush gesture from my choir friends. They always say shush through the phrase on beats. Shh, 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 shh. Something that shows you where their pulse is. That's going to get them ready for the mental cue. When is that mental cue going to be? One beat before the performance? One measure before the performance? When will be that little tick that we've seen in all of our performances today that begin the hands to the piano gesture? Okay, so we need a moment that you're going to prepare to go to the piano with your hands. When is that? Be specific. How long is it going to last before the sound starts? And how are you going to coordinate that to your breath so it feels organic and it feels like part of your body, not something that you're just imposing upon the performance? And then if your group wants to, you can practice it, try it out a couple times. Or if you're doing this with your student, this is the most important part, is that you try it. And then my favorite thing is do something else. Don't just commit to your first frame. Try a frame and then try something else. All right? So in your groups, I'd like you to find a small enough group that you can each have some discussion, maybe 4 or 5 or 3, whatever's handy. I think I have enough scores to go around if we have groups of 4 or 5 today. So find a little group around you of 4 or 5 people, and I'll parse these out. In your groups, you can go through these steps for crafting an opening frame, and if it helps to get your imagination going, here's some conversation starters for you and your student. What kind of breath would you use? When you figure out the time of it, what kind of breath? Is it a fast breath? Is it a slow, long breath? In? Maybe it's a long exhale to prepare for that first gesture. What kind of a breath would you use if you were going to sing it, especially? How can your opening gesture imitate that breath? Here's another great question. Students like this one. Would this movie fade in or suddenly appear? As you think of your first gesture, are you going to try to fade in or suddenly appear? And if they're more into the theater or stage, how would the main character, even television, I think of a sitcom, what's the Seinfeld, the guy who blasts in the door? Kramer, thank you. How would this character enter the room? This can help with their opening frame. How would this character enter the room? Would they strut in? Would it be a hi, here I am, kind of like a pounce, a Kramer, or is this a more thoughtful entry into the room? So these are some conversation starters. Let's see if we can parse these out. Do we have groups? Okay. Groups. Connect. You have 10 seconds and nominate a team leader so that I can just assign leaders. You're not signing anything or giving me anything. I just need to assign scores via leaders. So go ahead and find a team leader. I actually like the closing of this piece better than the beginning, but it's got a great direction.
So we determined that the mood of this piece, since it says right at the beginning of it, with a grin, is going to be lots of fun, mischievous.
Yeah.
It says here that a larrikin is someone who's a little mischievous and might get up to a prank or two. So it might be one of those kind of pieces where somebody looks off to the side and smiles, like
Breaking the fourth wall with a little bit of humor.
a little bit of a wink. And we also talked about just the preparation of feeling the beat before we start, and then maybe a quick breath, maybe the last quarter note, and then starting to play
And then jumping in.
in the next beat. So, Debbie is sight reading, Deborah is sight reading, so.
So
have
she'll
her
do
play
that.
it.
And stop, that's enough.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. I always have to tell my students, I'm like, thank you, that's enough, because we really don't need more than like 4 measures, right, to get into
Right.
this. And I'm sorry if you couldn't see her hand. Could everybody see her frame? Can you do it one more time?
Sure.
Play it with that frame, and then we want a second one. Does the group have another one?
Did I do it
Awesome.
right?
Yeah.
2 options. Okay, go ahead. Second one. Or first one again, and then we'll do
And nice
second one.
mezzo forte, that was great.
Okay. And then, do you have a second choice?
Gosh, I don't know.
What do you mean?
Did you guys come up with 2 frames?
No, we
Two
didn't.
different
We
ones.
only came up with one. We
You
didn't.
committed.
Yeah.
It was pretty nice.
Deborah, why don't
What
you
did
just
think
try
of
one?
that
About
frame?
the end frame.
They worked on the ending frame? Okay, we'll come back to that. For the ending frame, but no other ideas for beginning frames? Because it was excellent. I like the thought.
I think
and
we
went
talked a
through
little
the
bit about
process.
just taking a longer breath right before starting,
Okay.
kind of thing.
Let's try it.
No, I think.
A longer breath,
A shorter breath, we thought.
shorter breath.
Seem to be confused, yeah.
Right, well,
One beat, we thought.
I think I did do one beat, didn't I?
Yeah.
okay.
Did a
Yeah.
quarter note.
So-
You did a
So
quarter
frame
note.
1 has 1 beat prep.
How about a half a beat?
In eighth.
Okay.
I think that's too much.
That felt really fast.
Yeah,
Like I would need to have my hand up there, I think.
Yeah.
for him, right?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, what about a frame that changes not the timing, but the physical space from your first frame?
Yeah.
How could you do something that just tweaks the physical space and not the time? If you like breathing on beat 4, you're discovering,
Mhm.
what could you do differently with the physical space just to try out a different frame?
You mean the way my posture is? Is that what you
Or
mean?
how you approach the keys?
On the
Or
beginning?
starting with the hands
Where
higher
your
or
hands are,
something.
where are your hands?
Start here, like
Yeah.
start this way, start instead of starting there, so.
I think
Like that? Like that?
Yep. Sometimes you don't need to change the time, but just the physical part.
Yeah.
Vice
Yeah.
versa. It doesn't need, there are all those little dials you can turn a little bit. So good, 2 frames. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, this
Alright.
group, 2 frames. So you would go home and practice them, and probably we would check them in the next lesson then and see which one you're feeling is more organic, more comfortable, more you, but you have to do 2, at least 2. And as the student gets more advanced, you can just say, okay, this piece is going great, you're ready to go prep 3 frames on that for me, bring it back next week, I wanna see your 3 opening frames with the first phrase. To that, how about we go over to what's next? We'll do the opening of Antarctic Breeze next on the next page.
In prepping our conversation related to the things that are on the page you want to look at, glacial jumped out at all of us. That glacial is cold, it's solid, and yet underneath it you have expressivo, rubato, e legato. So you are already given some instructions of how it wants to go. So, let's give them an example of what it's, because when we were sitting there, I think we all had a different vision of what the sound was going to be, and when it actually, in reality, on the keyboard, it was totally different than what I thought it was going to be. So, why don't you play the opening phrase, or opening part?
That's enough, great, thank you. Yeah, just to the end of the first phrase.
Sorry.
I
should do that again.
Wait, she needs to do this again because she misconstrued something, and it makes a whole difference on the.
Actually, can I ask a request for both time but also for focus? The danger here is that we're gonna get sucked into the piece. They're great pieces. We really need to focus on the very first sounds and no more. So please don't play past the first two notes.
Okay.
2 bars would be enough, but if you'd like, you can even just make it the first 2 notes so we can focus on the very gesture that gets you there. What did we all notice about that one? Her gesture, or her frame, excuse me.
I loved that she didn't put her hands on the keys and then began. I loved that she went right and played.
Glacially.
Yeah. It was reflecting the score, right? Do you have another alternative for us?
You haven't gotten around to a second one, I don't think.
Yeah, it could be
Any
a little
ideas?
softer.
Start on the
Soft?
key.
Try to
Start on
just
the
have
key.
your, because of what comes out.
There's a hand over there.
One, I love the glacial beginning. What if you did exactly what you did, but also think of getting taller?
I felt it rising.
It's a possibility, I don't know if it's the right one, but I'm thinking glaciers, I'm thinking,
Yeah, I would think maybe she could come up more slowly to get the idea of glacier. As slow, not just icy, but.
You mean her torso, kind of
Yeah,
stretching?
yeah.
Yeah.
let your
Or
torso,
glacial means really
It's
slow.
Sit at your
what's under
full
the
height.
ice too.
Yeah.
Iceberg, it's
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot beneath that you don't see.
excellent.
Yeah, that sounds good, really good.
That was very different.
Very different.
And it was a little quieter.
And then there's always that student who's gonna come back with a completely different idea than you and say, glacier, that means frozen. So I'm gonna start like this. But what would that look like? Could you try maybe, you know, not a silly frozen, but they're literally assuming this is a frozen landscape. I'm gonna start from a position of nothing, like no movement.
Like keep
Like
your
as
hands.
still as humanly possible, right? You
Yeah,
all
there
had
we
that
go.
student who's gonna come up with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, and again, it's a continuum, maybe a little bit less frozen, you would say as the teacher, because you need to actually follow through to get sound. But how can you do that on a smaller scale and still get the frozen? The kid thinks this is supposed to be still. I want this to feel still, and communicate still. And then how can you get them to get the gesture that they need for the sound? Because you have such a great follow through on your first gesture. The first time you slow it down to sort of communicate the size of an iceberg or a glacier. But the second time, if you can minimize it to keep it frozen and sort of just play with your students' imagination, see if you can have a dialogue back and forth and maybe come up with your third frame and then think, okay, go home, practice them, and also videotape them so they can see what they look like and feel like. Thank you so much for taking all of our suggestions. How about the bagatelle? Next. Nice, that was perfectly precise and not too long. What did we notice about that one? Let's see if we got what they agreed on. Opening frame, timing, gesture, character, go ahead.
Sorry?
One beat?
Right, and the pulse being the half note, so our goal was sort of the half note sniff.
You started with your hands on the keys.
It's a half-note sniff.
We did talk about that a little bit, like if it was a student who was very kinetically aware, they could throw their hands, but that would be dangerous. So for most students, getting on it and then going.
Almost as if a conductor leading the marching band and with a cue, in a sense.
And we also, Elaine said, you know, the problem is that they're thinking of the quarter note. And before they learn all of their notes, that's gonna be a problem, but pretty much students can learn those first couple notes very quickly.
And you can say, even though we're not in tempo yet, you can practice doing the half note with just the opening. And then the rest of the time, they might have to treat it as quarter notes while they're learning all the pitches and the positions.
I
So that
have,
was
I
the-
have a question for you, because we didn't discuss it, but I saw you doing it. Was there any method in tapping your foot along?
I was unaware. I used to get yelled at that I was on a jazz pianist
I say,
also, and
being a
I
jazz
was
pianist.
told, keep your feet quiet.
Just wondering.
Was I?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
no,
I was
that's
just
not
wondering.
good, I should. Is that, would you coach a student to do that?
No.
Yeah,
But I, if you had a rationale, I was interested to hear.
No, it's called bad habit.
Great for checking awareness. That was excellent. Yeah. Did we see your second one yet?
No, we didn't have a second one.
Contrast.
We had a theory of it with the more spontaneous,
Oh, just some-
confident student that wouldn't.
Yeah, let's see that student.
Yeah.
Pretend to be
That
that
was
student.
my
It's a
Martha
theory.
Argerich story where I saw her start the Prokofiev third, just sitting there, no preparation at all, just like, ba-da-dum, and it was just, that's not copyable, reproducible by your average student. So I don't know, I don't think I feel comfortable just so suddenly going. I feel like I need to.
You cue the air conditioning.
Does anybody
Next
else
team's
have an
gonna cue
idea
the
for a
light.
second one, other than that? 'Cause
So a sort of pounce. Here's what I do invite you to make it messy, and do the Martha Argerich example with your students. You can model it. It doesn't have to be note perfect. This is not about getting the notes right, as it is about exploring and maybe even laughing a little bit if it's silly, but finding a different way to do it from your normal way.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know, just the half note sniff seems so entrenched for me. I'm drawing a blank thinking of other than throwing your hands, or coming from high. You can come from higher instead of being on the key.
And think about all that time before you play too. It's not just the beat before you play, but remember that click we saw, that mental click where some people snapped into character and there was still time ticking before they played? That's part of this. It's not just the beat before you play, but it's the beats before that too. How are you getting into character? Go ahead, we have an observation back here.
I was thinking maybe like, you know, something like that, bringing your body into it maybe, like stepping on hot coals or something.
Yeah, don't have the chords.
Like if you're stepping on hot coals, you just, you know what I mean?
Dancing a little bit.
Okay, so you want me to interpret the rest of the measure then? So I was.
First.
Oh, or that I'm feeling the rest of it before I start?
Yeah, just. You know what I mean?
I don't think I do, I'm sorry.
Like,
You want to demonstrate?
oh god, yeah. Just like if you're okay, I'm about to walk on hot coals. You're like, you know what I mean, but with your hands.
Before I start, I'm thinking of all that?
Yeah, so you can go ahead and do that. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, as like
You
that
think?
sort of gesture,
So a little
as
more
you're already doing
playful.
it, yeah.
And it creates a different flavor
Yeah,
now.
and also it puts it in your face.
Yeah.
Here's a challenge. Without playing anything, can you show us Marshall? There you go.
Stern.
This is Allegro Martiale, so it's
Okay.
like a march or
Okay,
like a
okay.
like a military
Okay,
sort of
okay.
leader in chief, sort of walking into the room. And so this is something that I always tell my students: you can be this person before you play this piece, right? And then connect that to your gesture. But usually it's a spinal thing. Someone mentioned the spine, and
Yeah.
you see like
Yeah.
the general has arrived, and now they're playing. Yes.
Yeah, so I should probably more erect posture when I'm just doing.
And then, I don't want to get into posture talk, because I know we all have different feelings about ergonomics and that kind of thing, but it comes to the integrity of the score and the character, which is really what we want to focus on. If we play too much past the first two notes, You know, you're gonna get obsessed with the notes and the technique and all that stuff, but it's really what happens before you play and those first couple notes, it's already there. So if you're encouraging your students to get in that imagination of who's the person playing this, who's the character on stage, how do they sit on the bench, how do they get to the keyboard, that's important. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. And our last group, I don't want to leave them out, Gone Too Soon, which we are running out of time too soon. But I want to hear from our Gone Too Soon group. Do we have a volunteer to play, or do you want to coach me at the piano? How do you want to do this, Gone Too Soon group?
Can I try,
Please, we
I'm not a
welcome
sight player person.
And don't, but just really like first two chords, 2, 3, on an upslur.
Sorry.
That's great.
If I were to do with my right hand, I would do.
So this
I need the
group,
pedal.
with the pedal?
Yeah, I mean, you have to add the pedal to make it.
This group, tell us how you coordinated that, this first opening frame. See what you just gestured there. Looks like an airplane landing. We got it. Start from your lap. I think what they're saying is the whole gesture has to come from the lap.
So start here. Okay.
Yeah.
But slower.
They're saying longer. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Longer. Sorry.
So a longer
This is
gesture.
my first time being directed, so.
You're doing great. And this is part of the fun too, is sometimes it's gonna get extreme and silly. But let's see how slow.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
And my first time, thanks.
Pressure.
Anything else you want to do? What do you want to do now? Any
Group,
questions?
did you wanna offer a second type? Opening frame?
Well, I was saying that I probably would, once I do that from your lap, I would wait on the keys.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna suggest.
Or
that.
in the keys.
From the lap, from the lap. From the lap.
From the lap, and then wait on the keys.
Yes. I have to, this here is too loud for me right now. So of course I'm playing for the first time, but yeah. All right, one more time. Want me more practice? Yeah.
It's kind of addicting, isn't it? You wanna keep doing a few, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you, group.
the second note, I'm going loud. I'm going too loud.
Yeah, but
I feel like I'm
that's
playing too loud.
natural.
There's shape
Okay,
there, I think.
yeah.
You're welcome to shape it.
Yeah.
Your shaping doesn't.
Oh. All right.
Okay, so I don't wanna keep us from lunch, and we have closing frames. We won't go through this whole process with closing frames. You could do this, you guys are so collegial. I love it. You could keep this conversation going at another meeting or when you have coffee with a friend. But here's the takeaway from opening frames that's, oh, sorry, Jonathan. It's exactly the same as closing frames. You see the traps we're falling into? We're trying to teach the piece. You're not teaching the piece. It's not about the piece, right? It's about getting ready to play the piece. So don't fall in the trap of playing too much music when you're doing this, or harping on the student about what they're playing wrong, notes, this and that. Right? It's to get to the keyboard, maybe 1 or 2 notes, but don't play much more than that. Same thing with the ending. Don't play too much, or you'll get sucked into the rest of the piece. And also take note of what we were tempted to do, which was keep doing the same thing over and over again and not explore physical space or time that felt in this case, I love this example because it felt weird, didn't it? It felt so weird to go as slow as your group wanted you to go with that to the piano, and then as soon as you did it, everyone in the room was like, that's the one. We like that one in the audience. Now you have to practice it and see, do I like that one this week? Or maybe it's just 2 beats instead of 4 beats, but you were just doing 1 beat. You know, everybody has one gesture that they want to do, and we can do so much more than that. So, with that said, let me jump to our conclusion here so we can all have some lunch. Thank you, Miriam. There's some great, the closing of Larrikin is super fun if you're looking for something to start with your first closing frame craft. Why do we do this again? It's for our students. This is going to help them be more confident performers. It's going to help them really explore their imagination, and they're fun to do that with, right? That one who's going to say the glacial pace is frozen. Those are the fun students that surprise you every day, right? You need that too. And it's going to command their attention in a very distracted world that we are in, particularly when they perform. And it's going to enhance the presentation of their art. We know those students who are going to have a great performance usually because they've got a good frame. And it's going to benefit you. It will build your confidence when you feel like your students are playing artistically, and this is a big piece of it that often gets neglected. It's going to help you connect with your students through their imagination. And fast track, this is what I love. We're getting right to the meat of the artistry. What's the character you want? What's the composer's intent? Those are such important questions that we lose when we're focusing on, did you play the right note? Did you play that with the right articulation? Why do we do that, right? Why? This gets us there immediately. And finally, forward. This can bring in insight to larger teaching objectives. Your kids don't know what beat they should be prepping on. They might not be counting at all before they play, right? Or they might think it's in 3 and it's really in 4. Those are fun conversations, right? So you might learn, oh, I actually need to work on that with my student. Or they don't know what the expressive marking means. They haven't translated. Whoops. You know, there are other things that'll help you say, I need to guide my student in this a little bit more. And finally, this is going to help us fast track and have fun. And always do it like you all did so beautifully because you're mainline and you're wonderful. You had me do it together, and I give you my final closing frame, best one ever, better than Liggity Etudes. Thank you.
Leave me alone.
Oh shoot, here it is. If you know this one, it's spectacular. Go, Victor Borga.
Oh, I love him.